so happy to be back after a small hiatus. I was just transporting myself to another dimension inside the great city of Moscow, and I'm now in my countryside house. Well, I say mine is the countryside house of the father of my wife. One day I shall have my own, but for now I have been kindly accepted to live here. And I have a really VIP guest and a really, really great friend, and I'm extremely excited to have him here. Amilcar Ortega. He's a multimedia artist, MC, and writer. He's the author of the novel La Tormenta, and he created web spaces like miniplug.tv, fansinatra.com, and celebridad.com. So, dear Amilcar, welcome to the Leo Perez Show. How are you, man?
I'm great. I've been waiting for this. Let's do this.
We discussed we had a pre-meeting in which we had a conversation about the state of things, how they look, how they are, and how they are perceived to be. Where are you right now?
I'm in Buenos Aires. I've been here for almost a year. No, more than a year,
Yep.
actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. My first plan was to keep traveling, but I got. I don't want to say stuck because that sounds like I don't want to be here. But I do want to be here, but I don't see traveling happening anytime soon. So I'm starting to think like, okay, so I'm here, at least for a couple of years. I
So,
think I'm gonna be
so if
here.
there is a major conspiracy theory, it would be like that COVID-19 was all about stopping you from traveling.
I think so, man. I think so.
But
I didn't want to say it because then people think that I'm being paranoid, but I think that's the main reason.
I'm pretty sure that the powers to be are very motivated in that, and well, I mean, it's just like they need you in Argentina, man.
Yeah, yeah, they
Something
do.
needs you.
They, uh, they did it well, but because it worked. They are good, man. They are good. They are good.
We
They
are
know.
we are in a really really interesting soul space, and I'm curious to see. I mean, to discuss with you. Firstly, how do you feel in this moment? How do you see the human race? I mean, where are we freaking out, paranoid, or are we just going into the right direction? How do you read everything that has fell upon us? You as a writer and as a person who has been thinking into how to push the internet forwards for all your life, and not only the internet, but I think humanity. I mean, you have always been a person who has a vision and an idea on how things should be, and then all of this happens. Like, how do you react? How do you feel?
Thank you, first of all. And I don't know. I have a kind of regrets about the internet because I have like a naive perspective about it. I thought it was going to be the solution to many of the world's problems. I thought it was going to educate the world.
Yes.
I thought we were going to have access to everything like it was at the beginning. Uh, Maybe it wasn't everything wasn't there already, but the potential to hold everything was there. And then the companies came and they took the internet from us, and like uh, slipped through my fingers. That was the expression I was looking. Like now, I don't like it that much.
Yeah.
I don't. I feel like the tentacles of that, the powers to be, are all over the internet. I feel like the censorship is coming in a hard way.
Yeah.
It's already
It's
here,
already
but
here.
yeah, it's going to be even worse. And I'm really sad about it because the internet was like my my hope from for humanity. Like now I see it like a fashion. mall or something like
Yes.
that, and it's like, oh man,
What
what did
what
we do wrong?
what social media? I mean, for example, you're not on Instagram, right? If I'm not mistaken,
I am
you
a
are.
big, but I opened it like 6 months ago because somebody forced me.
Because you have no choice. Yeah, because
Yeah.
or either a girlfriend or something grabs your phone and you wake up after some like night out and then you're like, oh shit, I have an Instagram account. Like, I was not expecting that to start today.
Yeah, the world works in mysterious ways.
Man,
Yeah.
and also, I mean, the internet, as you perfectly said, was this beacon of hope at the end of the tunnel. We were coming out of a preceding age, you know, in which things became really kind of stuck, and there was this very big hope that things were going to just flow. And I think that's the best way I can call it, just flow freely and openly. And there was a golden era of the internet in which things were really like that. And I mean,
Yeah.
limited by some sort of bandwidth, but I have so many memories along my history inside the internet, and I would like to, instead of telling my memories, which will come out across the interview as well, to ask you, like, can you tell me, like, if you would telling to your son, like in front of the fireplace, you know, with some like pipe, like, son, let me tell you about the internet. How do you remember it all, and how would you tell this story to your son
Wow,
or
that's a
daughter?
great question.
Or daughter, because I don't want to be sexist, and your daughter would be black or half Hispanic and Asian or something like that, just to be tolerant.
Yeah. Uh, I would say that it started with the nerds. There were only nerds there at the beginning, and the World Wide Web wasn't even a thing. When I joined the internet, the World Wide Web was just starting, but I used a lot of BBS. Did you use
No,
that
no, no.
thing?
What is
It was
BBS?
called Bulletin Board
Uh huh.
Systems, and they were like servers you connected to, and they had like it was almost like a forum.
Okay.
Like they had topics, and you went in the topics, and you started. It wasn't chatting because it wasn't real time. It
Mm-hmm.
was like a forum.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
You
like bulletin
wrote
boards.
things. Yeah, bulletin boards, and those were great. But it
What year are we
was
talking about? Kind of
I don't know. I'm not good with years.
before
Yeah,
1998, I think, right?
yeah. Because in 1998, uh, Kaboom, like my first website already existed. In
Uh
1998,
huh.
I had my first website. I went. I went. I knew the internet was going to be like the next big thing, and I went and I studied to be a webmaster and uh, in a course uh, Pino Farese taught me. I remember the guides. I remember everything, and then I started a website with an illustrator friend of mine called Emiliano Siem
Mm-hmm.
El Chino,
Mm-hmm.
and he was in charge of all the design, and I started writing because somebody had to, right?
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I was creating the website. I was that was my job, but I started writing as a byproduct of that,
Writing
and
content, you mean?
then
Writing content
yeah,
for.
writing
Uh-huh.
content. Yeah, that was like my first experience writing content, and I became a content writer after that, and I left all the technical side uh, aside.
Yeah.
So in 1998, I remember that we won an award. So I remember the year. We won the Urbe Award that
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about before. We won like a green dog. it was like the statue.
Yeah.
Uh, and we were on our way. We thought like, yeah, we're doing this. We have a website. Uh, we have agency in the world. We
Yeah.
are so that changed my life completely because I was on my way to being a journalist and an employee or something like that.
Hmm.
But that experience taught me that I could do it by myself. I could do it alone. So uh, I went for it in a hard way. Like I stopped uh, everything else and I started publishing on the internet for like 10 years or maybe more.
What were people
Uh,
telling you back then? Like, dude, are you crazy? This is never going to be a thing, or was there understanding around you that it was all relevant? Sort of like, was there any tension in your life because you made this decision?
Not exactly tension. It was like they didn't they weren't people weren't even aware of the internet. They knew it existed, but they
Yeah.
didn't know anything. They weren't using it, and they weren't my audience was not people I knew
Hmm.
in my real life at all, but other people that were using the internet. And that at that time it was no, there weren't like a gazillion sites. There were just a
Yes.
few. So we had an audience at that time, uh, and we were. Uh, it changed me completely. Like I couldn't then after that I couldn't be like a good employee. Not for the. I mean, it was for the best. But it wasn't all. It wasn't. It wasn't perfect. It was you know, it ruined me as an employee.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember when I was living in London. I worked in some well, I had a corporate side of my life, and there are some people who are wired for this. There are people who are not. And the internet opened that opportunity for those who are not wired for becoming an employee, just to be able to empower themselves and do something. Is that still happening? I mean, I guess it is, right?
Yeah, it is.
It
I
is.
think so.
I mean, there's a
That's
market.
one of the.
Yeah, that's one of the positive sides to it,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Yeah.
But what happened? I guess that what happened is a reflection of the crisis of the whole humanity. It's not something special that happened to the internet. It's like, and I don't want to be that guy. I read this very funny thing, which is that in the year 1600, I think this was around 18th century, like 19th century, sorry, like in the 1800s, and I read this commentary from a teacher saying like, paper now is available everywhere, and students cannot focus because they have paper. Uh, where I'm going is that whenever there is some sort of like technological changes, the older generation starts criticizing the younger generation, and it's becoming the moment in which you and I, who were the younger generation at a point, are kind of starting to move to the other side. And I really wonder, is there something natural in me criticizing this, or is there something really bad happening?
I think both things are correct.
Because
Bec-
excuse me to interrupt you, what I hear immediately in my head is like, dude, like Twitter is not like paper. Like there is something that happened. There's something really fucked up that happened. It's really unique. But I guess that the teacher back then thought, but paper is not like.
yeah, yeah, totally. I I think paper probably changed the whole world.
Yeah.
You know, like that teacher was right in a way,
Yeah.
but it's not the end of the world, but it's definitely affecting everything. And and I see both sides, you know, because I don't understand today's youth
Mm-hmm.
culture,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I thought that would never happen to me.
Yeah, I also thought the
A few
same.
years ago, I thought like, "Pfft, I'm with it.
I also thought the
I
same.
know what's up. But nowadays, I hate the music.
Same.
I don't like. I don't understand TikTok. And I'm out. I'm out. Like, okay, I'm not part of that group anymore. Uh, and I know that affects my criticizing of them, and of the situation, because it's not only that I'm criticizing the youth, because they are, I don't want to say victims, but they are affected by bigger forces,
Yes.
bigger than the youth. Like these forces
Yes.
are
It's just like
uh, behemoth.
these forces can be in your bed at 3 a.m. I mean, that's really unique in time. Paper cannot. Well, paper could be at your bed at 3 a.m. Right? Like, I mean, you could have been reading a book at 3 a.m., but it doesn't change us on real time. Like, I mean, you would have to go in order to get influenced immediately by somebody trying to change your mind. You would have to go and voluntarily purchase a book or something. But this kind of paper, it's magically connected to a sorcerer somewhere on the other side of the world who is just like kind of sending you a new message. That so the real timeness of it. There is a really interesting cat. His name is Jonathan Haidt. He's a moral psychologist, and he has written several books about this. And I have only read one of those, but I have followed a lot of him on the internet and on YouTube. And he's not only one who is bringing the following point that I'm about to say. One of the things that is going on is that the youth right now do things to obtain social points on social media. For example, before, if you had a problem with a teacher in the university, you would approach to a teacher privately and just discuss it to him, and this will give you the satisfaction that you need. I sorted the problem. But now there is an added layer, which is that you can get social points if you do it publicly, which is something that did not used to exist at all. There was something called privacy. It used to exist.
Yeah,
It was
I remember that.
it was a really interesting thing, and then you could do things privately, and you did not have this. I would like to say the word morbo, which would be something a horniness for social, exposure, which gives you something like calling out somebody on Twitter. It's like, and you know what is amazing that I testify this on my own. I spent almost 7 years away from Twitter, really, and I just rehooked again. And it's so wired in our brains that we kind of need to know what's going on there. I mean, I see myself addicted to it right after I got back
Immediately.
to it. It's really
Yeah.
like so I don't know. There seems to be something there around there. I mean, around the fact that people. The opening of all our lives to the internet has produced this situation which is the end of privacy, which has produced a
Yeah.
situation which is the modification of our motivations.
Of course. I agree completely, and I am worried about it. But I'm a victim too. Yeah, like I participate. I want to get interactions
Yes, same.
for my post. I can't escape it, uh, and I don't particularly like it, but I don't hate it either.
But
It is what it is.
the other day, I saw somebody telling to Joe Rogan the following, which was like Joe Rogan. Yeah, Joe Rogan was
That's
telling.
the topic.
Yeah, we reached there. But Joe Rogan was telling him like, just don't read Twitter. And I think I'm gonna serve it perfectly for you. Like Joe Rogan was saying, like, but just don't read Twitter. And the answer, it was Brett Weinstein who was answering this. It was not like any dude. And Brett Weinstein said,
Yeah.
like, man, I don't have enough followers to be able to not read Twitter because I depend on them to make money. You don't.
Yeah.
And Joe was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
but just don't read Twitter. It's like, yeah, of course, it's super easy to say that,
I
right?
saw that actually.
Yeah.
I saw he was the guest, and I started that interview because of a conversation we had over Twitter
Yeah, exactly.
about those Weinstein
Brothers, yeah.
brothers. Like I've been watching the portal
Yeah.
which is what's the other guy's name?
Eric Weinstein. Yeah.
Eric Weinstein's
Yeah.
podcast. But I wasn't familiar with Brett Weinstein, so I started that uh, interview, and I got to that point. So and he's totally right. Like. Uh,
We can't afford just to. We can't
not
afford.
everybody, yeah, like Joe Rogan can't even afford to take his podcast to a Spotify, which will severely
Yeah.
exclusively,
Yeah.
that will uh, charge reduce his audience
Yeah. That's a
to
fact.
half.
Well, let me
Like,
tell you something. Russia has no Spotify
wow,
at
imagine
all.
that. Like,
It will have. The guitarist of my band works in Spotify Russia. There are 2 employees, and they will open in August. But if this would
whoa,
happen tomorrow, yeah, if this would happen tomorrow, there will not be Joe Rogan podcast for 150 million people.
wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible. But the point was that he can afford it. Like,
Yes.
he even maybe he desires it. Like, oh man, I wish less people would hear me, because that gives him like more liberty. Maybe I don't know. I'm just speculating, but he can afford it, and he's in a unique position,
Yes.
like in the podcast world. Like, he and maybe two people are the only ones who can afford it. Everybody else has to cultivate an audience and to try to make a tribe out of them, and
I
you
hate this.
have to. Yeah, I hate it too, but I have to do it.
Yes. Yeah. It's really
Yeah,
amazing how the cost of each follower has risen so dramatically. What I mean by this is that, for example, as I told you, I left Twitter for 7 years and then I came back and I have something like 100. I had when I came back, I had something like 176 followers, and for me to get to 210 followers was a epic battle, just where I am now. And I just open your profile and I see like something like 1,400 followers or something like that. It used to be so easy to collect this. It's interesting. I mean, but that's a facet of Twitter, right? I mean, Twitter is more like your audience is a bit more like renuent to follow you, something like that, because maybe it's more like a harder, market, social media market. But I wanted to say that just a second. I wanted to say that the price of the follower has increased, but I don't
yeah.
want to leave the Joe Rogan topic yet, because I mean he's an interesting cat and he has been kind of switching public opinion. And I know that you had some ideas that you wanna discuss with me about him. Like how do you feel about people like him? I mean, he's like, I read once something, I think it was actually a New York Times article, if I'm not mistaken, which was like Joe Rogan is the new mainstream media. Uh, like where do you stand about this? Do you think that that the whole media landscape is gonna move towards figures like him, or do you think we're gonna stay in a traditional media scenario for the years to come?
I think we're not in a traditional media scenario
Anymore.
right now. Like, yeah, but like the whole COVID situation was a big boost for traditional media, but they weren't getting any ratings
Yeah.
at all. Like, and Joe Rogan, it's not only that he gets millions uh, of
Views.
plays
Yeah.
of yeah, of views. That was it's not only that. It's like he gets millions of views of very engaged
Yeah. Exactly.
views. It's not people just with the TV in the corner while they're doing something else. Like, people are really listening, are really interacting with it, and it's amazing. I really admire that part of what he has done,
Yeah.
and I think it's uh, maybe impossible to do. I don't know how he managed to do that,
Well,
but
he was quite large before he ever started this, and he built it himself. I mean, it was not something that came for free. I mean, he was this host of Fear Factor, and I mean Fear Factor was in national TV, so in the U.S. and I mean anybody who is national TV in the U.S. is a large media figure. And I don't. The rest of his biography falls apart for me. But anyways, he was already when he
yeah, he
yeah.
was in news radio. Remember that show?
Exactly, and he
Did
was
you
in
ever?
news radio. No, I never seen
Yeah,
it. I never seen it. I never see it.
yeah. He was an actor. He was a fighter. He was
Yeah,
the host of Fear Factor. He hosted a lot of other things, uh, and then the podcast, and he has cultivated it for years and years and years.
yes.
But still, I think it's impossible
You know,
what he did.
yeah, and also this opens up a new avenue for us to walk together in this conversation, which is the following: people have an illusion that I mean, there are cases like PewDiePie or something like that. I mean, of people who just explode on the internet in recent times, and they will keep happening, and people who become viral and eventually make something out of it. But a lot of the people who are now influencing the net are people who had big money behind them, and then they became independent. And people, the laymen, think like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna become Joe Rogan by just making my podcast and just going and doing this. And it's like, yeah, or in the music world, I'm just gonna become Red Hot Chili Peppers, better example, Radiohead. It's like Radiohead goes and releases. I remember I was laughing so much when it happened when they released In Rainbows, and everybody's like,
Yeah.
look at them, they are independent and they made millions of dollars. It's like, dude, like, I mean, they had millions of dollars of push before this, and then they become independent. Or Nine Inch Nails is another great example
Yeah.
that they released that album Ghosts, and they made Trent Reznor made something like $25 million with that record. The record
Wow.
Ghosts. Yeah, and of course it's like the young person right now has this idea that you can just pull that off out of your pocket, and I think that the media landscape changed so hardly that as you're saying, these things are becoming ever more harder and harder and harder, and the attention spans of people are getting more tight. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like, and this has produced a situation in which, in order for you, and this is what I hate about the current media landscape and the internet, in order for you to explode, you need to be at the biggest fool, kind of something like that. I mean, or to really ridiculous things so much. That's the TikTok culture, right? Uh,
Yeah. I don't.
or maybe that's not a good idea. A good
I don't
idea.
understand it, so I'm not commenting about TikTok because I don't know what's going on over there. It's not my place to comment on TikTok, but yeah, like I listened to the Joe Budden podcast.
Hmm.
Have you?
No,
Do
I
you
don't
know
know it.
about that
I don't
guy?
know it.
That
No.
guy he was a rapper,
Hmm.
like a medium tight rapper. He was like he had one big hit,
Yep.
like Pump It Up,
Uh huh.
and then he released a lot of albums independently.
Hmm.
Uh, before after he was dropped from the label,
Yep.
and he talks about that difference, right? Like when he was with the label and they were working his records, uh, and then when he was independent and he was trying to push them himself, and he had like a previous marketing campaign done for him,
Hmm.
and
Yes, that's what I
he
mean.
still couldn't move records when he was independent because he was not a household name or something like that. And he talks a lot about that reality that okay, maybe uh, some people can get famous because they catch a hit somehow, and maybe the internet works for them. But in general, you need like a big money behind you, like a big push, and and I don't want to leave the Joe Rogan topic because I wanted to criticize him and I ended up
What is something that
praising
you don't like
him.
about him?
I think he sold out. I think he sold out, and that's what I wanted to discuss with you
Hmm.
because we had like a Twitter
Exchange.
interaction exchange about it. Uh, uh, and Twitter is not the best place to talk about the complex
Yeah,
ideas.
this is the
And
best
this
place. Yeah, yeah, to talk
Yeah,
about those things.
exactly. So, like, what I was going to start
Yeah.
writing my case in 140 characters. No, I wasn't. So
Yeah.
I waited until now, and I think it's sold out. I think it's obvious. Like, he made a, a portion of his name talking about conspiracies
Uh huh.
and talking about the moon landing. Uh, and he's a very sophisticated guy. He knows
Definitely.
what's going on, he knows what's up, and he acts like he doesn't right now when there's
You're right
uh,
about that so much. He's always saying like,
hundreds
yeah,
of hours of evidence that he
that
knows
he's not
what's
an
up,
idiot.
and
Exactly.
he now he talks he makes fun of Eddie Bravo, who who used to be like his sidekick, and now he makes fun of his theories. Of course, Eddie Bravo goes to the deep end of the pool, but still, like he makes fun of. Have you seen like a show with him and Eddie Bravo?
I always skip them. I just don't see them for some reason. Like I'm just maybe I would see them after this conversation, but no, I haven't.
Okay, no, it's just like the. I at first like I thought that he brought Eddie Bravo because Eddie Bravo could say what he couldn't, and Eddie Bravo was like this like para rayos. How do you say that?
Um,
Like
that you mean that it attracts lightning or it's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I mean it's like it's a focus. It's a beam of attention. We can call it like that, perhaps. Or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, perfect. Uh, I'm sure there's a word for pararrayos, very perfect word in
Yes.
English, but
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yeah, whatever.
Lightning
So
stopper.
yeah, something like that. But his attitude really changed. Like he started to make fun of Eddie Bravo in the last. Uh, I'm gonna say 2 years. Like he's going very uh, chill. Like you know that word chill.
Yes.
Like yeah, like he when he talks makes fun of people calling him a chill.
Yeah.
Like the you can tell in his face that that he's suffering and that he wants
Yeah.
to talk but he can't. And
You know,
uh,
carry on, carry on. Excuse me, carry on, please, please, please.
no, I just like Eddie Bravo straight up asked him about the moon landing. Like he told him, I think it was in an episode which is great. That one you should watch which is with Alex
Uh
Jones.
huh. Yeah, yeah. I love the
The
episodes with
second,
Alex Jones. Uh huh.
yeah, the second one, Eddie Bravo is there,
I haven't
and I
seen that one.
think it
Yeah.
was there when he asked him point blank at Joe Rogan, like, but what do you think about the moon landing now? What do you think about the moon landing? And he was like uh, he didn't know what to say. He was stunned for a second, and he said like, I wasn't there. I can say I can. What do I know? I
Yeah.
can't say anything.
So you have a
Like
feeling because you have focused on the moon landing topic. You have a feeling that somebody forced him to change his mind, or that about that in particular? I mean, like some sort
Yeah,
of powers to be kind of thing, like NASA
yeah,
contacting him or the army, just like, hey, dude, like, can you stop this?
yeah. I think he had the talk, like
He had that
the
talk.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I think it happens. I can't say exactly when, but he really changed, and he has continued to
But maybe he changed his mind. What do you think about that option? I mean, is that a possibility that he was like, oh, well, I saw the evidence, and I mean, is that an option, or do you think that you saw a change that was so sharp that doesn't kind of like coincide with that point of view?
yeah. I don't think that he changed his mind, because I think he still thinks all of those crazy things. But
Exactly.
I think so. I see it in his face. Like when he makes fun of conspiracies now, like that's the only moment when you can say that he's not being sincere. He's a very sincere guy, and he talks freely about everything. But when it comes to conspiracies, I, I I don't know. I'm not in his mind, but I think I can see it.
Yeah.
Like the other day, he was talking about Jeffrey Epstein.
Uh huh.
Epstein,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like this is not even a conspiracy. Like
Yeah.
the guy
Everybody's
was
saying
in
he didn't kill himself.
prison.
He didn't kill himself.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, like this is something he can talk about,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he was, I don't remember who was his guest, but he was telling him like, eh, can you believe it? Like something this obvious happened. Like all my conspiracy friends, my tinfoil hat friends are going wild about it. And and he started like making fun of this guy Sam Tripoli,
Uh huh.
whose podcast is called exactly that, tinfoil hat. And and he was like, Sam Tripoli is going nuts. He thinks he's not even dead. I don't know, but
Ah.
he started saying it like making fun of the guy, uh, like that. Uh, I think they are even using him as as uh, as to pass that information. Like the other day, I saw him talking amazingly about Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Like he didn't understand why people were
Yeah. I remember this.
criticizing Bill Gates. Like, dude, why people are
I
criticizing
think
Bill
that.
Gates. You don't fool me.
Yeah.
I know you know, and I know you are acting.
Yeah. Yeah. And who knows? Who
Joe
knows?
Rogan.
We know you're watching, Joe. Come on, tell us the truth.
Yeah, come
Tell
on.
us the truth. Within those 400 views that this video will amass, like I know you're one of those. 399, 400. It was you.
Yeah, or maybe Jamie. He put Jamie to watch it.
To filter all the comments, like that are negative about him or something like that. I had a guest in the podcast. It was like number 3 or something like that. His name is Ilya Mazaev. He's a music producer, and he said something so wonderful. He said something about the following. We were talking about bands who were great and then release records that are worst later. And he said something
Yeah.
so cool. He was like, imagine trying to repeat a party. I mean, like, damn, we were the other day in Amilcar's house and we had such a great time. Let's repeat it exactly how it was. And then you try and you will never make it. Because, I mean, you have to it was so spontaneous, right? And it seems to be that figures as him experience some sort of kind of like a moment in which the party was so great that perhaps you cannot repeat it anymore in the future. Do you think that something like that is happening to Joe Rogan? I mean, it's kind of like a character degradation in a certain way, and then the prime was passed, or is it more like a corporate kind of intervention?
I think my theory, I have no proof, is that it was a corporate
Or government?
intervention, that he had the talk Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Corporate
Exactly.
government.
Exactly. It's the same thing. Absolutely.
He was too big. Like he couldn't keep going if he was going to talk reckless. Like they had to clip his wings, and they can't do it. And like if you and I, we can talk freely because we have nothing to lose.
Exactly.
But he had like the the biggest podcast empire ever
I think
created.
he's in $1 billion, a billion views a month because of including not only YouTube. I mean, if you sum everything, it's like a billion downloads a month, something like that.
Wow,
Yeah,
no, that's too
yeah.
much,
Or
man.
no, sorry,
A
$1 billion,
no.
a billion downloads a year. Yeah, I think a year for sure. I mean,
Okay, okay.
yeah,
Ooh, for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
But
I don't blame
do you
him.
think
I
that
don't blame
figures,
him.
do you think that figures like that, when we say they have nothing to lose, do you think they can lose all of that, or they become greedy and they want to keep that number of billion? I mean, because Alex Jones, for example, he was deplatformed, and that guy still is making money, right? So there are two options. Either you can lose everything, or you can lose that peak. Do you think people like that are worried about losing that peak or about losing everything?
Yeah, because both.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to lose that peak, but they can destroy you. They can
Yeah.
do anything. They can destroy your character. They can accuse you of things that you're never going to recover from. They like the stakes are high.
Who who is they for you?
The powers that be, I say, like if you want me to define
Like
who are they, like,
Microsoft, American, the largest corporations in the
yeah,
world, together with the largest governments in the world.
yeah, but I will say there's a level up an upper echelon
Yeah,
over those guys, like
yeah,
the
it's a possibility.
the real the real the people who has been controlling the planet for since the beginning, like they are in the shadows. You don't know about them. You don't know who they are. They are anonymous on purpose,
Yeah,
and they can do it. They have the best people money can buy, making them invisible. So I can't know. I don't know. I'm
yeah,
just a
yeah,
regular person. But if you want me to pinpoint them, I would say the people that own the banks.
yeah, yeah. And well, the media is owned by the banks. It's all come down from there. It all comes down from there.
Yeah.
It's just I mean I well I have such a here I'm gonna go to the absolute realm of speculation, but sometimes I even
Let's
think
do
that
it.
it could be people who are not even from this planet, and I really say that half jokingly.
Yeah.
Because I have a really particular view of the whole UFO and life outside Earth phenomena. And here are the data points, or the consideration points of my. And in here we're having fun, okay? I'm really not taking this so seriously, but that's why I made this podcast, so we can have fun and talk.
Let's have fun. Let's
Yes.
have fun. Let's
And,
have fun.
like
Yeah.
in when I think about when I read about space and aliens and extraterrestrials and things like that, I laugh at not half, maybe 70%, 80% of the writers in this topic, because they know jack shit about how the universe works. And so, first point, anything that looks like a war for resources is ridiculous even to conceive or to think about. Because if you're an alien who can travel across all the galaxy to come here, you're 0% worried about any resources. Why I say that? There are asteroids that are orbiting the solar system that has that have more titanium than all the titanium that you can find on Earth. Same with all the elements you want. The solar system is just a mega minefield of asteroids and of material which you can obtain. So anything that is physical, material, has 0% relevance, and it has zero part on the conversation of aliens or influence of extraterrestrial forces in different planets. There was a guy called Charles Hall, whom I don't think it's telling the truth. Again, in this, we're in the having some beers and having some fun territory. So I'm really not like, I mean, my imagination goes to those places, and I hope that my audience's imagination can go there too. Charles Hall is a guy who he wrote a certain like set of books which are fascinating. I mean, and excuse me to say that they're fascinating without having read them, but he spent a lot of time on YouTube discussing them. So I will, when I have time, read them, but I haven't. And he narrates the following kind of story. He's like, listen, I was working as a meteorologist observer for the American Army. And I was a person who was working in Roswell. Roswell is not only the famous Area 51 base, but there are all these parallel, locations that are connected to this mystery, which who knows what is there. And his claim is that in the 60s he was working as a weather observer, and eventually, for some decision of the powers to be, he was kind of gain access to understand what was going on there, but he was not suppressed. There was an agreement in which he was allowed to talk, to the public. But it always seems like the people who are allowed to talk to the public, like Tom DeLonge, this whole thing about Tom DeLonge, like holding
to the Stars Academy.
But it's so fun. It's like it happens recurrently that the people who supposedly are allowed to speak are immediately considered lunatics, and so it seems to be a pretty easy way of canceling this information out. It's just like, don't even shut them up, let them speak, because everybody will consider them lunatic. But what I really loved about the Tales of Charles Hall is that, because he wrote a set of books, I think it's called the Millennial Society. He no relations to millennials, by the way. This was a long time ago. He says that the reason why the Earth is visited by somebody is for the mere purpose of tourism. And I really think that if there would be something like that, it would look like that. It would not look like they're coming here for something. And my wife has a really amazing idea, because my wife and I, that's why I'm married to her. My wife is the kind of person that you can be watching UFO videos at 5 a.m. with her, and she would be like, whoa, with you. Like, she would be like, whoa, that's so cool. And she said something so fascinating. She has said a couple of sentences that are just, for me, are mind-blowing. And one of them was this one: if they would come here, it would be for our art. I mean, because that's something that you really cannot find in the solar system anywhere else. I mean, you can find our art, and the other thing you can find here is our media, and also our knowledge and our ideas. And I'm bringing all of this fun conversation just to add this kink, that if you see in the possibility of a extraterrestrial intervention in our culture, it would certainly be more connected towards somebody like Joe Rogan than towards what is under the oceans of the Earth, because they don't give a shit about what's there, because you can find it anywhere. So who knows if this, sometimes I entertain this idea, and what I have more fun even thinking about is that who knows if these people, if there are forces of that kind participating. If you have a really open mind, you consider this, and if you have you don't need to have such an open mind to consider the following. If those guys can build interplanetary spaceships, they can connect to a fucking Wi-Fi network. For sure. And so this all brings us to the point, when we have a mega segue and we had a lot of fun, who knows who is pulling who knows who is pulling those lines, whoever it is, it's kind of like a force outside culture, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if we are saying that it's from. By the way, I'm really by no means claiming, in all seriousness, that this is an extraterrestrial people who are absolutely. I'm not saying that. I'm just having fun here. My mind is free enough, because I know a lot about space, to consider this possibility. Because, dude, I mean, if you really have the capacity, I mean, firstly, let me tell you this: there are more grains of sand. There are more stars in the galaxy than grains of sand on the Earth. That's a fact. I mean, I'm not joking with that fact. That's a fact. And each star has kind of like 6 planets around it, 5. So grab every single grain of sand on the Earth and then put 5 planets on there and multiply that by 6, and that's how many planets there are there. And if there's another culture in another place, who is just 10,000 years ahead of us, imagine what they can do. I mean, imagine what, if we don't destroy ourselves, what they could do. So I really don't understand why people find it preposterous just to present this kind of ideas on the table. Who knows?
Because they are really ridiculized from the top to the bottom.
And you see, this kind of strengthens my point.
People just follow suit. Yeah.
If you want to hide it, just make it ridiculous, and then you can leave it there in plain sight.
Of course, man. I really suspect of everything that is made ridiculous in the media. Like if they make it ridiculous, I start looking at it. Yeah. Because like the other day I was watching Killing Eve. And she was in Russia because she's Russian, like the character. The character is called Villanelle, and she's an assassin, and she is Russian, and she was looking for her family, and she went to Russia, and there was 2 characters that were like made to look like stupid. Yes. Like these 2 guys, like they are like stupid, and they start talking about David Icke. This guy David Icke, he knows his stuff. He's a very smart man, and like they were putting like the stupid guys to talk about David Icke. And Villanelle, who is like the main character, was like making fun of them, like, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh man, I have to hear what David Icke has to say.
Yeah.
But this is coming because David Icke had 3 interviews talking about the COVID situation.
In London Real, or this was in London Real?
Yeah, those ones. The London Real ones, like they blew up immensely. And they are making like damage control with that Killing Eve show. But every time that happens, I
this is a great circle we have just drawn, because you see their script writers, getting connected with the real narrative that it's actually happening on Twitter, and receiving a feedback from there, and then they add to the narrative from the fiction side of things, and so the culture kind of gets all manipulated both in real time on Twitter and then via the script, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, are you saying like this is like? It can happen naturally, like maybe those writers didn't get a note, like
exactly. I agree with you
about David Icke.
Absolutely.
It can happen. I'm not going to say that it can't, but I think that they make fun, like they use ridicule as a weapon a lot.
Yeah,
and it works, and it's censorship. It works as censorship.
I have a great sentence about that. This is kind of what defines my position about conspiracy theories, is that it's sentence. By the way, this is a really controversial guy on the internet. His name, well, I don't know why he's controversial. He's a fucking Orthodox Jew. That's it. He's Ben Shapiro. He's a political commentator, and he's just on the right wing. And he's a brilliant mind. Period. Doesn't matter if you like him or not. He's just a machine of thinking, and he has a great sentence, which is like, and maybe it's not his, maybe he's bringing it from somewhere else, but the sentence is, don't attribute to brilliance what you can attribute to stupidity. And for me, that's kind of like what defines my position about these things. Is like, most likely, I agree with you, most likely this was just like those guys who are writing those scripts are part of the culture, and they were tweeting and saw or whatever on Facebook and saw David Icke and they laughed about David Icke and then they decide to include it. But there are documented cases of the CIA, for example, I mean, subsidizing certain kind of films, and nobody knows this. It's just like, for example, a person in the film fund X, whatever, I don't know which film fund, receives funding all of a sudden, and they don't know why these funds came to them. But somebody in the government knows. That's kind of how I think it works. It's very selected cases, but yeah, the rest is just like a natural.
It's not very selective cases, man.
You're right. Yeah.
They have their hands on every fucking thing, man. Can I curse?
Of course.
Like fucking? Yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
No. Like it's more common than you think. It's really common. Like the CIA and those kind of agencies. I'm not going to say like specifically the CIA because I don't really know.
Yeah,
like
I get you.
All those intelligence agencies, they have their hands on media because media is very powerful, and they can't afford not to have their hands on there.
Yeah.
Like there's, I wish I remember his name, but I remember the book's name. The book is the assassination of Tupac Shakur and other black leaders.
I'm Jamieing it right now.
Jamie, pull it up, Jamie.
Carry on. I'm gonna tell you the name of the guy.
Okay, that guy. He says there like the CIA funds 5,000 magazines in America or something like that. It's like, and he says like that may explain the kiosk, the variety of publications you can get in a kiosk. Like, it's not like with thing, man. Like if they have the money and they
the case of Martin
know
Luther King,
how to use it.
The case of Martin Luther King, I mean, it's a way that, I mean, it's because in there we can go without speculation. I mean, it's a documented case of a governmental assassination which was covered, and I mean, and then you have things like JFK. And what was the name of that? I don't know if you will remember this. There was this Rolling Stone reporter who, like, his car breaks. I don't know if you remember this. Sadly for me, I'm both the Jamie and the Joe Rogan of this episode, so it's hard for me to find things in parallel. But there is a very famous Rolling Stone reporter who, like, I mean, Stone reporter died car crash. Like, this is a really interesting Michael Hastings, bro. Like, Michael Hastings was a really interesting case. Like, he was really on something that he shouldn't have been, and classic like a movie, his brakes just stopped working in a super advanced new Mercedes Benz. Bam, went straight into a tree in California.
Perfect.
I mean, it doesn't get. And you know what? It was like his car was hacked actually, and it stopped using. Control.
I remember the story. Like it was something to do with black goo.
Yeah, I don't know.
I remember.
I don't have
like
the story.
what he was investigating. What was he investigating? Do you know? No. I don't know, but that. Those stories are everywhere.
Yeah, he has FBI files. I mean, he was investigating. Well, I'm gonna skip it because I don't want to bore the audience. But Google Michael Hastings controversy, and you will get somewhere. And Aaron Swartz is a great example too. I mean, one of the founders of Reddit. Like I mean, people who are driving to suicide that shouldn't have killed themselves, things like that. I mean, I do. Of course, I mean, I'm not naive in the sense that I know that, and it's so funny from the Russian perspective. I mean, it's obvious that governments interact in the culture all the time, and the American government especially. I mean, and so who knows if there is an even larger, player operating than something like a government or a corporation. That's why I brought this idea of who knows if maybe this is kind of directed from even from another planet,
Yeah.
but but it's certainly and that's something that South Park explored really well. I discussed with you the other day in the last season. I mean how I mean foreign agents can really affect the culture from within and just move things towards a new place, whatever they consider important. And so who knows if Joe Rogan is suffering from, like you said, the conversation. You know what was pretty obvious. Well, I'm very fond of American politics, and for me, American politics are like a game of SimCity. Like I see it, from above, and it's like this society, and I see the simulation happening, and that's why it interests me. It's just like the most advanced country in the world. So, or I don't have to call it advanced, but I mean it's the world leader, and hmm, hmm. and to be honest, I had a loss of the thread for a second. If you can help me.
SimCity.
SimCity, American
It's like
politics,
a simulation.
the si- the
Joe
intervention.
Rogan.
We're talking about the intervention of foreign agents in the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was. You need to pull
They,
out your guest powers and help the host.
yeah, I think like man, like they don't even have to tell you, like they can just finance your movie and they have uh like they passed you a note with two things like do this and do that and you would do it if it's the person that's financing your movie. You don't know he works for the CIA, you don't
Yeah.
know anything, like just for the money you would do those two things and you would get your movie done like easily, like money. With money they can control the narrative and they have to because that's their job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think they have their hands in that pie deeply, like
And
deeply
and I
in
think
all media.
yes, and I think these things are a bit more subtle than what they seem to be. I mean, in the sense that most of the people that are involved in this chain of command would say, I have no idea that this is happening. It's just like, hey, I mean, that's where the money's coming from. He's the boss, and that's it.
Yeah,
And
yeah. That's crucial because people that don't believe in this kind of ideas always say like, oh, like so many people would have
oh,
to be
no, no, no.
involved. And no, they like, no, you don't say anything to your employees. It's like when you work at a company, like you have a job, you do that job, you know the
Yes,
information specific for that job, and you don't know anything else. And it's bad form. It's considered bad form to ask your boss about the other the overarching strategies of the company. You don't, he won't answer you that,
of
and
course. And
that's
maybe he doesn't
and
know your boss. I
and
mean,
maybe he doesn't know. Yeah,
yeah.
and that's in a company that is not national security. It's not a top secret. He just won't tell you because you don't need to know, and shut
Exactly.
up and do your job.
Exactly.
If you extrapolate that to the world, like only a few people
Yeah.
need to know, and then they tell another one do this, and he do it
Yeah.
because that's his job and that's it.
So making a like kind of like weaving all of this together, what we have been discussing here as until this point. So do you think that these forces were away from the internet at the beginning, and that's why it was such a free place, or do you think they were there from the beginning?
No, no, I think it was a trap and I think we fell for it.
Ah, yeah,
And
from day zero. Because
yeah,
I until this moment I
yeah.
was thinking the opposite. Great, great. I like that. Yeah,
No, because the internet is military technology.
yeah,
They invented it, and I think like the freedom of the beginning, it was to lure us in, like it's happening now with cryptocurrency. I love
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I love the idea. I think it's beautiful.
Oh man.
When I think about all the ideas that have to occur at the same time for cryptocurrency to exist,
Yeah.
it's something beautiful to me.
Yes, yes,
Like
yes.
I can't think about it for days and be in love with those ideas. But that's also a trap because uh, they, right now it is as free as the internet was at the beginning, but in 10 years it will not be. They will
Absolutely.
be in control of the whole environment. And I think the internet was a trap, and I think I fell for it like everyone else. And I think this was the plan all along. Like to get us to spy on ourselves, to get us to give them all the information that they couldn't get, uh, and to end privacy. Uh,
I have
and I think it worked.
I have a natural question where we can solve another internet dispute that you and I had, a slight internet dispute you and I had. Why do you think Snowden is not a interesting individual or a fool? I don't remember what you told me once online. Like, what is your opinion about
Yeah,
people like Snowden? Do you think they're part of the same process or?
totally. I don't think uh, you can betray the CIA. Like, that doesn't happen. I think he's an employee of the CIA, and he has always been. And that process, it's always at play. It's called revelation of the method.
Yeah.
Like, they tell you what they are doing for you to know it and for you to say it's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, yeah, it's
But
the same. It's
you
the
have to
justification.
you have
Yeah,
to know it.
yeah.
Like, he didn't say anything that we didn't already know.
Yes.
We already knew, like, they were spying on us, but he made it official. Like, when he said it, like, people couldn't deny it anymore. And and uh, and that's a part of the process, because you have to know that they are in charge. Even if you don't admit it to yourself, you you know they are in charge. You know what they can do, and they would never be on TV telling you, like, uh, they can't get on TV and tell you that they know everything you do on your private life, but they can create a character like Snowden to tell you that, and then and then you start censoring yourself,
Yeah.
and then you start you, you know you
But that, but
it's a very sophisticated
sure.
system of control.
Sure, but I do have an opposition to that idea, which is that Snowden is here by coincidence, and not a coincidence. I mean, and that would mean that Russia is playing. Well, I just answered my own question, because I mean, Russia is super interested in spying its own citizens, and I mean, the revelations of Snowden distract the attention of the Russian public. I mean, I don't think that Russia is collaborating with the USA in that sense, because I'm telling you, Russia is a pretty, to a certain extent, independent actor. And when I say independent actor, I don't mean that it's not evil. I mean, it's equally evil. I'm just saying that it's like it just it's its own kind of evil, and so you can profit. You can profit from that. I mean, I have never contemplated your idea, and I don't necessarily agree. And I wanted to counter it. I wanted to counterpunch that idea by telling you, but look, Russia. No.
Bring it.
But that's the cool. I mean, I'm a pretty honest thinker, so my ideas fall apart as I say them sometimes, because I realize.
Cool.
I mean, because I realize that they don't have a good structure. So my counterpunch was gonna be, no, it cannot be that Snowden is a puppet because Russia is protecting him. But no, I mean, it can perfectly be that he's a puppet, and then Russia makes the puppet its own puppet. I mean, it's like, okay, well, let's use Snowden to distract the attention of the Russian public, to get distracted from the fact that the Russian are army is investigating everybody. So, I mean, and also it actually magnifies their argumentation because it's like, look, it's the Americans who do it, not us. But I mean, when you live here, you know that all this technology is being applied to you as well. I mean, with the limitations of the economy, which our economy is way smaller than the American one. But you understand where I'm going from there. It's like, I mean, I cannot use that argument to beat you up because Russia could perfectly just use that puppet to do something with that puppet. It doesn't matter. It matters zero.
I'm going to segue. Do we have time?
Oh man, yeah.
How
I
are
mean,
we in time?
my position is 2 hours, and we're in the hour 10. So take your time, bro.
Well, I'm going to go this route, but I want to apologize to the audience first because this is gonna be rough. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a one world government, and there has been for a long time, and everything that happens on the stage, on the political stage, is a show. And I don't think it's a bad show. I think it's a good show. So for that to happen, it has to be real, it has to be real. So the way I see it is like a league, like a sports league, Mm-hmm. Let's use Barcelona and Real Madrid as an example,
Yes.
Like, do they hate each other? They hate each other. Do they, are they competing? Do they want to win no matter what? Of course they want to win no matter what. And do they use espionage on the other
each other? Yes.
Of course they do. And do they sabotage each other? They sabotage each other, and they enjoy when the other one loses.
Yes.
All of that happens, that all of that is real. But in the end, they know that they belong to the league, that the league is above all their fighting. They have like an organization that can arbitrate that.
And they wouldn't do something to harm the league, for example.
They wouldn't. They can't. And they know that's their business, and they know that the rivalry works for them both. They both make money of the rivalry, and they are partners in a way. They can hate each other all you want, but they are partners in a way, and they have more in common with each other with you peasants.
Yes, you know to give strength to your idea. If you ever see Putin's speeches in the future or notice something, he will always say the word "our American partners." He always says this word. Whoa. Our partners of the West. I mean, even when he's talking about that a fighter jet knocked down a Russian fighter jet in Syria, he would say, well, an American partners failed to inform us on this information. And so I mean, the way this actually gives more entertains even further my idea of like, I mean, perhaps there is a unifying factor that comes from above. Or, I mean, because recently
I'm not mad at that idea.
It's so funny.
I'm not close to it. Not close to it. I don't know. I don't have any proof, but
who knows?
Why not?
There is a brilliant South Park episode, which is I think I don't remember the name of the episode. This is an easy one to find. Earth TV
Jamie, show. Pull it up.
South Park episode. It's called the episode is called Cancelled. The episode is called Cancelled.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and
perfect.
This episode aired in the 19th of March of 2000, and so it's an old one. So the plot is that, man, it's amazing. The plot is that since the first season of South Park, they were introducing this idea that Cartman was visited by aliens and an anal probe. Actually, the first episode of South Park is this: that Cartman is visited by aliens, and they put an antenna on his ass, and so the antenna is beaming out information there. And so several seasons.
I remember that, but I didn't know that it was the first episode.
Yeah, it's the very first one. It's called Cartman Gets an Anal Probe. Yeah. And so in season 7, imagine 7 years later, they bring back this concept that those antennas were actually designed to beam out information to an interstellar TV network. And so what the plot discovers for the audience is that each planet on the galaxy or in the universe has only one species, but that Earth is a reality show where they put species from all over the universe and they put them all in one planet. And so they made a TV show called Earth, and the episode is about the fact that the show lost popularity, and so they're going to destroy the planet. So they're going to cancel the
Okay.
They're going to cancel the Earth. And actually, the funny thing that I wanted to tell you there is, like, they come to them and they're like, don't you ever see that all aliens look the same, but you guys are like, you have like blacks, Chinese, Asian, whatever, Latinos, these are all people from all over the world. They were all put together here. And so, well, eventually, it doesn't matter. The point is that it speaks in the air, in the atmosphere of what we were discussing before. If there would be an unifying agent, it would, in my belief, that comes from another planet, it would be way much more connected with something like that, even though it sounds so fucking stupid, than to be connected with something like a material need that a more advanced civilization would have. And who knows what is that unifying factor. But I wanted to, that's a segue on the South Park episode. Now I want to tell you more seriously, or 100% seriously, about how I see your idea of something like a global government. Yeah, go ahead.
A little.
Please go ahead.
No, I wanted to say that the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy starts like that. They have to destroy Earth because a highway is going to pass through here, and then the whole thing starts.
Before I leave the UFO phenomena and my vision of the UFO phenomena, I will tell you why. Because the $1 million question is always, if this is a factor in our lives, why? I think it was Terence McKenna who said this idea. It's a really funny idea. It's like, why they have never landed on the White House, and we all see it. And the answer that Terence McKenna said was because they know we will nuke them if they try to do that. But that's not what I think, actually. I always, when people ask me this question, because I really love this topic, and I love this topic because I know the math, and I know the math of how many possible worlds exist and the time that the universe has been happening. And so just you do the math and then you realize. But still, there is something called the Fermi paradox, which is like, the math exists, but we still haven't been visited. Why is that? And my answer to that is very simple. For example, there is a place on the Arctic called Lake Vostok. It's in the South Pole. It's near in the Arctic, and this is a 4-kilometer piece of it's a lake which is under 4 kilometers of ice. So that lake has been isolated from the external world for 20 million years or something like that, or I don't remember exactly the name, but it's a pretty ancient place that has been isolated by a sheet of ice. And Russia has a research center there, and they designed a super sophisticated drill system that works on water vapor, to be able to melt the ice in a very special way, to make sure that when we reach to the bottom, this was already done many years ago, to make sure that when they reach to the bottom and they can sample the water, they don't contaminate it. So where am I going to this? We are another species compared to those microbes that live under that 20 million or whatever million year isolated place. And we go to very extreme length for them, quote unquote, not to notice us. What I mean is, like, we don't want to contaminate that lake. So, and also you see, there are species of monkeys in the Amazon, that people really go to very far away lengths just to not disturb them. And when people think about aliens and things like that, they dehumanize them to a point that they don't imagine that perhaps and I'm telling you, if we would go to another planet and there's life there, we would go to very large extremes to not bother them at all, or at least not to make sure that they don't notice us. They don't want to obviously affect our culture. So that's why I think if this possibility would be entertained seriously, one has to take this idea that I'm saying seriously. Like, they don't show themselves off in the White House for the same reason why we would not show ourselves up in the White House. I mean, because we just simply, even when you, for example,
it will deserve the whole life in the planet forever.
You don't want to do that.
Never be the same.
Like
forever.
For example, when I'm walking around some city and there is a religious situation happening inside a church and I want to see that church, I just don't want to enter there because I don't want to ruin their moment, something like that. I mean, whatever. It's the same. I think that would be my argumentation for why we haven't seen this. And also, I mean, why we haven't.
And another thing is that we have seen it. I haven't.
Yeah.
But I don't ridicule the people who have seen it.
Yeah.
Which are like thousands of people
and pilots
all over the world.
Like that.
You have to ignore all of those testimonies to say that they haven't been around.
Yeah,
you have to think that all of those people are crazy. Come on. Maybe they are, but I wouldn't discard their testimonies like that just because in the TV they say that there are no aliens.
When the whole Tom DeLonge thing was gathering traction, I was just laughing so much about this ridiculization factor and I mean how easy it really is to it's the easiest way to make it go away. It's just the easiest way. Just make it funny, make it stupid, and then people will just consider it a fake and maybe that's the unifying factor. I mean, but anyways, now that we have made this kind of parenthesis, I wanted to tell you, let's for a second destroy the idea of a unifying factor coming from outside of our planet and going back to your idea of the global order.
Let's do it.
I think that this is a little bit. I mean, I think that these conversations happen always. I mean, in between somebody like Putin, Xi Jinping, and Trump. I mean, about what are we gonna do to make sure that there is some sort of cohesion. But I have made a big swing, political and spiritual swing in my life, and nowadays I stand as a conservative, Orthodox Christian. That's exactly my official position of worldview. And it's really radical. Yes. And I could talk for hours about why I made the transformation. And I mean, and I would really, and I would love to talk about that, but maybe not immediately now. I just want to say something, the following. That world order is not necessarily bad. Like when we see, really, and when we see the fact that these forces are controlling us from above, the question would be, what's the alternative? I mean, the alternative is what? That we all run around naked and just don't care about the fact that there are countries that need to be organized so we can actually take an airplane and fly to Argentina from Moscow. These things are the reflection of the fact that because our evolution as a species, as an animal, was multiplied by a factor of 1,000,000 by the fact that we became tribes. And tribes started competing with each other, and that is not a bad thing. I mean, that's how you make sure, because when you live in the vantage point from the Venezuela, for example, which is a country that has no winter, it's very easy to kind of imagine a world without a state. But when you are in Moscow and there is minus 30 degrees Celsius and you need to have heating, an anarchist group is not going to be so successful at producing that. So I do believe that this world order exists. I do believe that it can lean towards evil or towards good. But I don't think that it's necessarily orchestrated for the benefit of somebody. I mean, let's say it better. I don't think it was built for the benefit of somebody. I think it's just naturally appears when you put these forces and make them collide, and then people learn how to game it after it already exists. Right. That's more how I see it happening. And then the people who know how to game it. I mean, Russia intervened in the American elections No way. Of course it did. Like, who the fuck thinks they didn't? I mean, America intervened in everybody's elections. I mean, it's just such a childish conversation to imagine that these forces are not operating. And what disturbs me the most about the current moment in history is to see how everybody all of a sudden became a 9-year-old kid who has no fucking idea about how a world is built. Oh my God, America! And that's something that I love about Russians. Russians are not like that. Russians are like, America intervene in election. Of course, we do the same. Fuck that. Like, and there is no like an outrage about it. It's just like adults talking, you know. It's not like, oh my God. And that's the worst thing about what's going on now, man. It's like this.
Oh man, the infantilization.
The infantilization of everybody. It's just so crazy.
But we're in the age of Horus.
Yeah.
So that's to be expected, you know, like all like the culture today is infantile, like all those superhero movies. They are for children, and people are children, and they act like children.
And the policing on Twitter,
we are children.
The policing of Twitter and Facebook, I mean, it's for children. I mean, I cannot digest the fact that all of a sudden a technology corporation is worried about the fact that I'm going to read something that may disturb my brain. It's like,
no, I don't think they do that. That's what they say, but
of course,
in the end, they just want control of to have like a legal way of controlling thoughts, thoughts of the people, you know, because once that's installed, they can do anything with it. They can say like, this idea is offensive. You know, like right now they are doing it with ideas that are big, and that you know, like the it's very clear what they are doing, but in 5 years, 10 years, it's going to be muddy, and they can do anything they want with this power that we are giving them. So that it's very, very dangerous, but it's happening.
I'm gonna share with you because my source of daily news right now comes from the American right and the Republican Party. I mean, that's what I'm seeing every day nowadays.
That's crazy, man.
Yes. And that's what interests me. And I want to tell you what are, because I know that very, very possibly you don't check out those sources.
Can we a little interjection, because I feel like you're going to change the subject. I wanted to say
actually no, but carry on. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That movie Hero. Do you remember that movie? Like Chinese movie.
Yes. I haven't seen it. It's South Korean, right? It's South Korean, right? I haven't seen it.
Oh, yeah?
I haven't seen it. I think so.
Please look it up, Jamie, because I'm not sure. Because I think like it's about China, but maybe the South Koreans did it. I don't know. I think it's Chinese.
Oh, no. You're right. Sorry, bro. Yeah, it's Chinese. Yeah,
because the plot is that all of these tribes are warring. It's a spoiler alert if you haven't seen Hero.
It's fine. I don't mind. But for the audience. Okay. Yeah, spoiler alert.
Yeah, for the audience. Sorry, audience.
Yeah.
Or skip it. But the plot is that all of these different tribes are fighting each other, and there is like one that is winning, and the leader of that tribe, of that we're gonna say tribes. I don't know what's the proper term, but the leader is the bad guy of the movie, and he's winning. And this guy, the hero, is like kind of an assassin, and he has like he wants to take revenge on this leader because of something that happened. I don't remember exactly, but the great, amazing thing about that movie is that in the end, he has the guy, no, and he fooled him to let him in into his palace, and he knows he can jump and kill him. And at that time, he realizes that this is the only guy that can unite China, and that if he kills him, the war between the tribes is going to keep going on.
Even though he's an assassin, right? Even though he's the evil guy.
He's the evil guy, and amazing. He probably killed someone in his family, and he has it, like he did all the movie. He was trying to get to that moment, and in that moment he realizes that this guy is the only chance the country has to be united.
Yeah,
and he doesn't kill him, and that's like kind of related to the idea that you were saying, that it's not necessarily bad, because somebody has to do it, and maybe to do that you have to be like a cutthroat,
I remember. By the way, before I leave that idea, I wanted to say I'm not gonna forget the new idea I was gonna say now. The old idea I wanted to say was the following: the right is fighting for an interesting thing that I don't know if has reached your feed or your area of knowledge, but I just want to share this with you so you put it in your system, because it's really interesting. The American right is kind of leaning towards the following idea: the problem we have with social media platforms is that they act as the phone company and as a publisher at the same time. What does it mean like that? If I call you and I tell you, fuck you, on the phone, the company who beamed that phone call is not the guilty one for what I say. And right now, American legislation treats technology companies not like publishers. It treats them like the phone company, and it doesn't make them liable for what their users say, but they started acting like an editor. And so the American right wants to start treating social media companies like you will treat a newspaper, because it's kind of like, dude, I mean, you're obtaining the benefits of acting like the phone company, but you're not being punished like the newspaper, but at the same time you're acting like the newspaper. I mean, if one of my guys, if I have a newspaper and somebody writes on my newspaper, everybody go out and burn this city, and they go, and I as the editor of a newspaper, I'm gonna go to prison because I accepted that article to be published, and I'm being treated as a newspaper. But right now, social media companies are policing their users. It would be like, imagine that the phone company is all of a sudden like just interrupting your conversation and blocking what I'm telling to you. But at the same time, they're not facing the responsibility of what their user says outside of the platform. And that's a really big problem. And the American right is trying to legislate that. And I don't know where that's going to go. I'm just telling you that people from that side of the aisle,
It's very interesting.
Yes,
it's
are
very
pushing
interesting.
for that.
Yeah, because they are doing it because the social media platforms started with the censorship.
Exactly.
With trying to control what the people say.
It's either
because
or.
If they leave it alone,
then you're like the phone company. Then you're like the phone company.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
That's amazing. But
yeah.
But if you just start policing what people say, you're not a phone company anymore. You're a newspaper.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of.
Exactly. So now you're responsible, liable, even.
Yes. And that's this thing that happened powerful, recently. Man. Yes, that's really that's. I mean, the thing is that something happened after the Second World War, and as a person who lives in Russia, this makes me vomit. What happens after the Second World War is that Nazi and Soviet are not the same thing for people. It's like Nazi bad, Soviet kind of bad. It's like no, it's the same bad. There is only one difference. I'm gonna tell you: the Soviets kill more people. That's the only difference. And that's something that it's shocking. When you say the right, people think like Nazi. It's kind of like, and it's really not like that. I mean, there is a very beautiful movement in the conservative world, and what they're trying to do is like, let's just define good rules to play. I mean, and that's the difference. And so there is a lot of people within the right that are trying to find a way to legislate to fix this problem, because right now we're in a limbo, in which those companies can behave however they want, and And I mean, and the tech
Look,
and the
I'm
tech world
against
is most,
censorship
yeah, exactly.
for with all my might. I'm against
Yes,
censorship.
yes,
And I don't agree with many people's ideas, but I will fight for them to be able to express them.
yes,
And I think what these companies are doing is awful. It's
yes.
terrible, and it sets a precedent that is dangerous
Hmm.
like no other. So
Hmm.
that thing that you're telling me, that idea,
Yeah, I will
uh,
share with you. I will
I
share with
think I
you.
agree.
Yeah,
I have to think about it more because it's almost like making more rules. Like more
sure.
rules, I don't think it's the
No,
answer.
but here it is.
But
It's not like more rules. It's more like let's define what are you. Are you the phone company or are you the? And then you can go and decide that. That's it. Once you decide
yeah,
that, it's like okay, then because imagine if I'm talking to you on the phone, and then Megaphone or whatever my company cuts my conversation, I,
yeah,
I could sue them potentially. I mean, because I have always felt a little bit awkward on Twitter. Something like, I mean, I have felt, I'm going to explain what I mean. I mean that I have felt when I complain about them, I have always had this feeling, which is like, well, but I'm kind of using their platform, so they kind of can do whatever they want with me. But that's a very naive point of view because, I mean, in the end, we do have an exchange, and it's a commercial exchange because my data is super expensive. I mean, and they are getting it. So we are establishing a transaction. What we don't have is clear rules of the game, and I don't have the capacity to go to sue Twitter because they blocked my account.
yeah,
And that's the
yeah,
only thing
yeah,
that I think makes sense. I mean, it's like, hey, Twitter, you're like the phone company. That's it. And then if you block this person's phone call, you're violating the contract. That's it. And so you cannot just. That's what most people on the right in the US are pushing for. And actually, Donald Trump signed when this shit happened. I don't know if you noticed, if it appeared in your feed, you know that Twitter labeled one tweet from Donald Trump as inciting violence.
yeah. I remember.
And Twitter and Donald Trump signed the first executive order that would lean towards treating Twitter not as a publisher but as a as a publisher and not as a phone company. Anyways, I'm not articulate in this because I care more about other topics, and I will certainly like post maybe put it as a link in the description of the show. I mean, a very articulated well explained version of what I'm trying to say right now, because I mean what I'm telling you, the principle goes, but I'm sure that it's more nuanced and that I lose
Yeah,
the
I got it.
yeah
So I
yeah
think the
exactly.
audience is going to be fine. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure of that,
And
but
it makes all the sense in the world. Like they are censoring a lot of shit, and they shouldn't be because it's their platform. But
yeah,
we are like the gas of
exactly,
that platform,
exactly,
and we
exactly.
deserve some respect.
I mean, imagine that this could be a good metaphor, that I'm driving on the car and then whenever I say the word sandwich, the car just like blocks the gasoline, and it's like because the car
Yeah,
doesn't like the word sandwich or something. It's like wait, but I pay for this
yeah.
car. And that's the other thing that people really,
That
because
that's what. Sorry.
carry
No,
on, carry
that's
on.
that's what I fear about the self-driving cars and all
Oh
that.
man, yes,
Like,
yes, yes, yes.
man, I don't like that. I
Yeah, I'm the
want to
same.
be in control of my destiny because
Yes,
they could block me from going places.
yes.
Like,
Yeah,
I don't
I
I don't
agree.
like that.
I don't like that too. I mean, I think that, I mean, it's very interesting that you and I are having this conversation because we were always like kind of futuristic for our time. We were looking forwards towards the future. And
Yeah.
today I was when I was walking with my son, I really remember the moment I looked at some plant and this idea appeared in my head, which was, it's funny that you never tried TikTok because you were always trying everything. Always the new, like, I mean, you always were trying. What happened that you stopped wanting to try? And it's just like the thing became a mess. The thing really became a mess. Like, and
Yeah.
we are. I mean, I really remember. I'm on Facebook since 2006. Facebook came out in 2005, something like that. I mean, or something like that, 2004.
Yeah, probably.
And I really
That sounds
remember.
about right.
I really remember when the wall appeared, like the moment when the wall appeared, and I really remember
Yeah.
thinking, "Oh, this sucks. This sucks. What the fuck is this?" Like I mean, now everybody's gonna be sharing like their, and I never could imagine that how much it was gonna suck, like until years later. Like I just couldn't imagine how much it was gonna suck until years later, and then where we are standing now, it's, I mean, the most ugly thing is that we entered voluntarily and we entered without any
Yeah.
kind of, it was like sign here, yes, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
there is a
They
Danish
fooled us.
there is a Danish, I think it was from Denmark, once again Jamie, but Jamie right now is drunk, so we cannot talk to him. Like, he cannot help us, but for by the way, I don't know if there's anybody who does know what we're talking about with Jamie, but he's the usual helper of the podcast guy, and I don't have that. So there is
Joe Rogan,
yeah,
he's the right hand man.
yeah,
Joe Rogan's
exactly,
right hand man.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so he's always pulling
I
out
don't
things.
know. Like everybody has watched all this one
I'm
Joe
shocked.
Rogan
I'm
show.
shocked about it. I have met so much people when I say, and people not from Russia, because Russia is in a different place, but more people from Venezuela or something. I said, like, have you heard Joe Rogan? No. Oh, wow. Okay, great. Check it out. Anyways, there is a. I think it was in Denmark or in Sweden. It was a Nordic country. They did this thing, which was they read all the terms and conditions for something like signing up to YouTube or something, and
Okay.
I mean, it was like a 6 hour broadcast on national TV. They did it just to take a
Wow.
piece. I mean, just to take a piece of.
Of course, of course.
They fucking like
It's
read
like,
every single point of the whole thing.
yeah. No. Those things could be like 2 pages.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
could be
like
two pages. Yeah.
they make it. They make it. It's the same trick that the lawyers use,
Yes.
like using big words and made up words
Yeah.
to confuse you and to think into thinking that they are useful. I'm not saying like lawyers aren't useful,
No, of course, of course.
uh, uh, but you know what I'm talking
Of
about.
course,
You
of course.
know that those contracts could be very simple, and
Absolutely.
that 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 you make it 6 hours long of on purpose to make people not read them, to include like the things that you want to include. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, and also to be able to change them without people really questioning them. I mean, how many times have the terms of services changed and we just say like, aha, okay, accept, go, no problem.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know how we're gonna get away from this, because we're all back to that Brett Weinstein Joe Rogan conversation. I mean, we need to make money, and all of a sudden the money is made there.
Yeah.
And
It's a
so
paradox, man.
it's a paradox.
Yeah.
This is a good way to lean towards a new place in our conversation, a new frontier, and also it's totally connected. I mean, one of the things that I think that one of the big problems that we face as a world right now is that people have deleted the fact that life is a paradox on itself, and that everything we experience is paradoxical. And it's really important to think like that. That's another thing that I obtained from Carl Jung. I mean, that's in the center of his thinking. It's like if you start understanding that things are paradoxical and you stop seeing them as good or bad, you make a big progress in understanding better what you should do. I mean, the internet is something that is paradoxical, and these companies are something that is paradoxical, and even eating is something that is paradoxical. I mean, eat too much and you're fat, eat too little and you die, so I don't know how to build a good media diet. What kind of things come to your mind when you're trying to kind of balance your life? Do you have a strategy, or are you like a prisoner, like I am sometimes?
Mm, media wise, you say?
Like a media
Like
diet, I mean, or social media
a
diet,
media
or
diet.
like,
Like
yeah.
I don't feel like I have a major problem. I
Uh-huh.
just go where my attention wants to go, and I follow my instincts, and I'm not married to any news organization or to any
Yeah,
or
absolutely. Yeah.
any personality. Like I don't throw the baby with the bathwater. Like if someone has a useful idea and I'm against everything else they stand for, I still appreciate the idea, and I try to go with my gut. Like if I read something and it seems unauthentic to me, I
It's
just stop
yeah,
reading it
yeah,
and go somewhere else. The only good thing, no, well, not the only, but one of the good things that has come out of all of this digitalization of media is that you have a lot of options,
yes,
and I still long for that time uh, when the internet wasn't as corporatized
yeah,
as today, and that there were a lot of more options, and they were like made for by real people.
yes,
Yeah, that's what I would love to have back, like that period when the internet was made by real people.
yeah.
But since that's not going to come, I uh, go with the flow. I try to uh, to be healthy, to
Is
to eat
is
healthy.
you are? I'm really curious. One of the and I think this will take the last minutes of our podcast. I'm really curious to hear your opinion about
Um,
where does Latin America stands in all of this? Is it like just marginalized, or it has a trend of its own?
mm,
Is it the same,
damn.
or it's just negligible?
Uh, do you mean in the internet, in the media
Yeah,
landscape?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Like
I don't know, man.
you're more focused
Uh,
outside, or are you focusing Latin America as well?
I focus outside more. I, I, it's hard for me to talk about it because, for example, in music, Latin America is bigger than ever.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Everybody
Mm-hmm.
is listening to Latin music, but at the same time, that should be beneficial to me. But at the same time, it's the music that I don't like
Yeah.
that gets popular, and and I think that could be extrapolated to everything that's happening in
From
Latin
outside,
America.
from outside it feels peripheral, not central. But I don't know
Yeah,
if it is because I'm not there. You know.
of course, of course.
Yeah.
No, of course. Yeah, peripheral. Yeah, maybe. I don't. I live here, so I'm surrounded by it. It doesn't. It has never felt
Yeah.
important to the world, but but it's important to me. So I don't know. It's really. I think you have a better perspective because you're outside.
Yeah.
From the inside, it feels like it's important. I don't.
Yeah. From here, I mean,
This was like my worst question. I couldn't
no, well, it's not
answer it.
easy. It's not easy. I mean, to answer. I mean,
Yeah.
for example, I criticize. I give you a guide of how would I answer that question, and perhaps this could lead you towards giving me some info on what's happening there. Like when I talk about the Russian media landscape,
Okay.
I put it next to the American media landscape or the UK or because that's the thing. When you're thinking about Russia, you can make those comparisons because Russia makes rockets, boats, cars. I mean, it has a market. It's not. I mean, to give you a perspective, how smaller we are. The economy of New York State is the size of the economy of Russia. I mean, it's not like we're so
Wow.
huge. Yeah, yeah. It's not like we're so huge, but anyways, I mean, yeah, we have
No,
some
still it's big.
we have some shit going on, and but anyways, I mean, one of the reasons why I make this podcast was because of the gap that I feel that exists in the long format in the long format, kind of Russian oriented, Russian world oriented conversations. There is there is like a certain group of guys, but there's kind of like one guy for everything. Whereas when you see, like in the case of Russia, our Joe Rogan is called Dude. He's like a very famous guy, and he has a similar kind of idea podcast. But there is one, and there is a big hole here, and it feels that it could be way much more developed for the size of our market. And when you analyze this in every aspect, you will find this kind of pattern. It's like, oh man, it could be way much more developed than what it is. And so I just don't know what's happening in a country like Argentina, or because I don't think that Venezuela is even a point of comparison that is relevant. Because I mean, people having to think how they're gonna make money at the end of the month doesn't allow you to so comfortably sit down and make a fucking podcast of 2 hours with somebody. I expect it to be less, but I mean, you see where I'm going.
Destroyed. No, I see where you're going, and I like what I can say about that is that I was 3 months in Brazil, and I've been here a year, and these two countries are a market on themselves.
Yes.
They have bands, they have television personalities, they have everything that the world has, but it's concentrated in themselves. And I think they don't even care that much about what happens in the world as they should. They don't care at all. It almost seems like in Brazil, they live in a whole. It's almost like a continent, like a separate continent. They don't even know about all of the other countries that are in South America. They don't care, but they support the art made there in a big way, and it's self-contained. And in Argentina, I would say the same thing happens here. There is a lot of everything, but it doesn't comes it goes out. And I think that I have always thought that there's something suspicious there, because in the 70s, for example, like all the artists from Brazil were worldwide famous.
Yeah, you're right.
And from Argentina también, like all those rock bands like Sui Generis, and like Charlie Garcia and Spinetta, they were regarded as genius worldwide, and they were doing like their material was worldwide quality.
Yeah.
And then all of that stopped, and I can't help but see. I'm a conspiratorial kind of person, and I can't help but see like there has to be a reason I'm not seeing. Like, I don't think it's just the market that silenced us. And I thought that there wasn't. I talk about music because it's the thing I like most and the thing I know most, but this can be extrapolated to everything. But in music, I think the quality is there.
Yeah, in Latin America, in case.
But we don't get it. We don't get it. I don't. I get like two bands from Argentina being in Venezuela, like the most famous ones.
I tell you an insight that I understood only when I lived in Europe. It's just an idea. I mean, I'm not telling you that this is where the money is, but when I lived in Europe, I understood something about the Latin American scene, which is the touring circuit. It's impossible because you cannot drive.
Yeah.
You can, but in Europe you can, and in America you can. And so, I mean, I have done this 6 times already. That I just rent a van and drive from Moscow to Berlin and come back. And then I played shows everywhere. And I mean, this is the geographical. Well, I mean, this is fucking your conspiracy theory, but
No,
but
no, no. Perfect. No, it's true.
I
It's
think there
true.
are factors like that. But also, wait a second. A person like Rita Indiana, for example, in the 70s, would have become a legend. I see your point there. There is something weird,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all
Like,
these Brazilian
but
artists. Yeah,
But like Rita Indiana, for example, she is the most interesting artist in the whole
it's
continent,
one of the most
and
interesting artists in the world. Yeah,
yeah, probably,
yeah,
surely, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But this continent is not supporting her like it should. Like uh, she has to be a legend here first, and she isn't.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah,
man. I'm
yeah,
so I don't know who to blame, but
yes.
someone is to blame, and it's not me.
I'm sure of that. I think it's more
I
like
don't know,
most
man.
likely alien record producers, man, to blame.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
sounds
yeah.
more logical.
Like that. That funk video. You
Yes.
remember, like
Tell me,
the
my
from the second album.
yes, yes, yes.
They had like the interstellar. I don't remember the name, but they had like an anime made
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
all the
I know
songs.
this video. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And one
yeah,
of the things was that all the great musicians had been aliens, and they
yes.
paint them like humans and send them to Earth. Maybe something like that is happening. Maybe, yeah, yeah. Like Spinetta, he can't be human.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
yeah. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know
Hey,
that.
man, is it really over? How much time do we have?
We're in the last minutes. Yeah, we're in the last minutes. Yeah, kind of. I
Damn,
mean,
I
anyways,
wanted to talk about
I'm not at
the
all stuck.
moonlighting.
I'm not. Well, that can be a podcast on its own. I mean, that's certainly not for the last four. No, well, I mean, I'm not stuck like to the 2 hours specifically at all. So if you
No,
feel
but you
like
have
introducing,
something to do tomorrow, so maybe we can record another one about the moon landings,
that would be amazing. That would be amazing
because well, I
because
don't
we
know.
have
Yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah.
Because we have
I
to.
don't. Yeah, yeah. I don't want to rush them.
No,
That
and
topic.
also I learned that, I mean, and by the way, that's one of the things that I think that it's in which Joe Rogan is quite strong because he's a fighter. You know, he knows how to channel his own energy across the whole thing. But I learned when I started doing these long formats that after the second hour of something, your mind starts. I mean, the mind of the host starts just drifting a little bit, and it starts becoming more difficult to push the conversation toward the interesting place and etc. So in
No,
that
cool,
sense,
cool.
I have so much areas of opportunity. A and B, it's amazing that I mean I love, for example, that we have run through 2 hours talking, and we have not even discussed the fact that you wrote a novel. You know. and I I love that fact. Pull it out there, Jamie. Yeah, pull it out,
Yeah.
Jeremy La Tormenta. And I love I think I choose that as a closing conversation. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, in a point you decided to start writing fiction. Is that something that you always wanted to do, or it was born out of nowhere? What's the story behind this book and La Tormenta, and what can you tell people about it?
Yeah. I always wanted to write a book, but I wasn't sure if I was going to do it. And the thing that happened was that my last project was destroyed. Like it imploded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what I'm talking about, you know very well, is the whole mini plug.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, 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 I wanted to say empire, but it sounds
But
so.
it was for the scope of Venezuela. It was, yeah,
Well, it was a try.
yeah, that's right.
We were trying to build an empire, and we failed. That sounds more real, more
Yeah,
realistic.
yeah,
But yeah, like Miniplug was the main site, but we were trying to construct other sites and to try to make an independent media company. That
Yeah,
was
I
like the
wanna.
main goal.
I need to make a
Yeah.
pause here 1 second, and I want to say something because I know that there are people who will hear this that are not Venezuelan. So the thing is that right now you read these numbers like of how horrible Venezuela is and how it died. And when Amilcar and I were in Venezuela, there was certainly not we were not Switzerland or something, and it's not like things were fine, but there was the energy, the resources, and there was the human potential to make things like what Vice is today, for example. I mean, or what publications like Vox and publications like, I mean, perhaps I'm choosing bad examples. You may illustrate me with a
It's
better one.
now every fucking publication is a corporate
Yeah,
publication,
exactly, exactly.
but but it
So
was another time. Yeah,
So
yeah.
quickly, where I'm going with
Continue.
this, quickly where I'm going with this, that the way, for example, I met Amilcar is that Amilcar, together with another crew of people, within those included one of the guests here on the show, Flavio. I mean, Flavio was connected in another way to you, but anyways, I mean, there was a thriving environment in a point. I mean, in a Caribbean style, of initiatives that you could put a seed and then it would grow. And so Amilcar put the seed there and it started growing. But I mean, the whole thing burned around, and not only because the country burned, but also because of the personalities involved. And there are so many stories. But I want the audience to know that Amilcar is one of those people who grabbed the seed, put it there, and the seed started to grow. And that seed was called miniplug.tv, and I give it back to you. So I just wanted people to understand that Venezuela was not always a 1,000,000% inflation, 5 million immigrants kind of country, but there was a moment we were making a party called For You to Be Serious. I mean, it was such a fucking visionary thing, man. Like, I mean, it
Yeah.
was in the very early days of YouTube, and this was parties where video selectors were showing videos. I mean, we're talking about 2006 or something like that. I mean, it's 14 years ago. Like, there were so
Yeah.
many fresh things happening, and Amilcar was kind of like the guy sitting with the whiskey, and shaking it with his finger in his fireplace, kind of planning this thing, and we were kind of orbiting around these ideas. So I give it back to you. So after you set this up, then this collapsed, and
Yeah, there are a lot of stories that I could tell, but it's about La Tormenta and not about Mini
exactly.
Plug.
Let's go to La
So
Tormenta. That
yeah,
mini plug will be together with the moon landing.
yeah, please, yes, exactly, because that's a bigger topic. But that thing collapsed, and I was like, I don't want to say depressed, but with like really trying to see what I would do with my life once that wasn't present, because it was at the end there. It was my life
Yeah.
basically. That project took over my life, and I didn't have it all of a sudden, and I was like, well, what do I do now? And I started thinking, what did I want to do? For years. I spent like 2 years just thinking. I was like working, but I wasn't doing anything because I wanted to pick the real project that I wanted to do. And my main dream in my whole life had been to write a novel, but I was afraid to do it, rightfully so. I learned uh, then, because I thought this was going to be a 1 year project. I told myself, like, I want to write a novel. I'm going to give myself a year to do it. And I started writing. I had tried to write before, but like fiction. I started a novel when Mini Plug was going. I tried to write a novel, but I couldn't. So I had that experience, and then I started with this new one, with more of a plan, with more um, of a um, of I knew I was going to finish it. Like I had like the all my
You
energies
had the
were
drive.
piled up. Yeah, the drive. That's what
Hmm.
the word I was looking for. So I started writing it, and it took me 7 years.
Yeah.
It took everything for me. Like I became a hermit. I became. I stopped talking to people. I missed a lot of my family's parties and very big and special events that will never come back. Like uh, I had to sacrifice everything for this novel because I had just started, and it
Yes.
was it you know, like it was so much information that I had to carry around that I couldn't just get distracted, because if I got distracted, I then had to reboot and to get all the information up again, and it was not possible. So
Yeah.
I just went for it. Uh, uh, Always fooling myself, thinking that in 1 year I'm going to finish it. One more year, and I'll finish this. And with that fooling myself, I ended up spending 7 years writing and polishing it, because I wrote it in 2 years,
Yes.
like the whole thing. And the next 5 years were rewriting and correcting it, editing, what they say, editing.
Hmm.
That was brutal. It was brutal, a brutal process, but it exists. So like this is what I wanted to do, and I did it. So
That's
I'm
amazing, man.
really,
You know,
yeah.
I support your cause, and without, I don't feel the need to say I'm sorry that I quote Carl Jung so much, because he's one of my best friends. But Carl Jung said something that I find really fascinating, which is, you don't choose your interests choose you. And I'm
Perfect.
sure,
Yeah.
and I'm sure
And
that
I'm going to tell you, Carl Jung is named in the novel,
amazing.
and I quote Carl Jung,
Yeah.
and it's not like the novel has just one main character,
Hmm.
but he reads and he's investigating. It's all about an investigation,
Hmm.
and some characters. I think like some writers are characters in the book
Amazing.
because their ideas are present. And Carl Jung is not like one of the main ones, but he's up there in
That's
this
amazing.
book. He's always present.
I know a great. We will discuss the novel in detail once I read it, and I'm really looking forward to that. Before I move on from it, people can buy it on Amazon, and it's gonna be in the link in the description below here.
It's in Spanish
It's in
only so
Spanish only.
far.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, there is a lot of Spanish audience here that will be able to buy it. And I know the final question I want to ask to you. So I the other day, as I told you in the middle of the podcast, I kind of had this, migration towards standing more in some sort of conservative space, which was a shock in my life. I was never expecting that. And I remember I was playing. I was a part of the London underground punk scene, and I was very active and toured as a punk musician, and had a great time and met very beautiful people in that sense. And I remember when I grabbed the hand of my wife, and I was ready to marry her, and I remember being like in the altar going to marry, and I remember feeling that this was the most punk thing I could ever do, because to bet on love, right? Something like that, to bet on love. It's like
Beautiful.
the most punk thing I could have ever done. And then when I had my child, I thought that was even the most punk thing I could ever do. And then I'm going somewhere here. And then recently I saw a meme which was like which was like punk 1998 or something, or 1996, and it was guys tattooed with It was like the image of what being on the edge means, and it was like and being on the edge in 2020, and it was just a guy like with his wife and his son. It was like being on the edge right now, being the counterculture is kind of like betting for family, some shit like that.
Yeah.
Because everything flipped. So you are a person who always were betting on the internet, and then you went and wrote a novel. So could it be that things flipped and that now the book is the future? The actual paper book. You see where I'm going? I mean,
Yeah.
do you think that perhaps there's going to be a regression towards that kind of media because of the mess where we are?
I certainly hope so, but I'm not that optimistic about the world.
Yeah, me neither.
uh, Terence McKenna, who you named
I have a tattoo in my body
before.
that it's an honor to Terence McKenna. Actually, like I gave him a
Wow,
tattoo.
cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, you have to put it in the show notes, like the image or
Well, check it
something.
out. It's this.
Oh, whoa! That's a 23. Which one is that?
It's 7 and 8. It's
It's
7 and 8. It's 7 and 8, and I have here.
okay.
I have here 0 and 1. Yeah.
Whoa, cool.
I gave
But
him a tattoo. Yeah.
it's about the I Ching.
Yes. Of course, because I fell in love with his ideas, and when I was living in London. So Terence McKenna said.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about being
Oh.
optimistic about the future and if the book is gonna be a.
Oh, yeah. One of Terence McKenna's big ideas was the archaic revival.
Exactly.
That we needed to have an archaic revival, and I hope that idea catches on in the future, because I think that would be our only hope.
Yeah.
And I think like the analog world had a lot of problems, but we had privacy,
Yes.
and we're never going to have privacy in a digital world. Forget it. There is no way.
No way. Yeah, I agree.
Maybe if you are like a super hacker, you can have privacy for yourself, but that's like 100 people in the
Absolutely.
world.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the other ones are never going to have privacy, no matter what, because the media, the digital landscape is designed to record everything. And if
Yeah.
everything is recorded, there's no privacy,
privacy.
because somebody is going to find a way to get to your records. So I hope so. I love books, and I love and I have a longing for that past, that analog past, that I don't think the young ones have, because they
Yeah.
didn't live that world. But I lived it, and I have my best memories are in that world. So I don't know if I'm the best person to ask, because I would say yes, and I would say
I hope. The only thing
I
we can
hope
say is
so.
I hope so.
yeah.
Well, that
yeah.
makes you a conservative, bro. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like I told you, like I don't throw
I'm joking, of
ideas
course,
with the bad water. No,
Yeah,
no,
no.
because I feel it in my life.
Yeah.
Like I feel the change as I get older. I start appreciating things that I didn't appreciate before, and the conservative values are one of those things.
Yeah.
And I think it comes with age, and it will happen to everyone. Like
Yes.
all the
Absolutely.
youngins,
Yeah.
they are going to live this process. But I don't. Uh, I like to take ideas from all the
Yes.
sides, and make my own I don't know, like pantheon.
Yeah.
Because I don't there are ideas in the conservative world that I don't agree with.
Exactly.
There are ideas in the
Yeah,
left,
liberal world.
liberal world that I hate.
Yeah.
And there are ideas that I like, and there are ideas about anarchism that I love.
Yeah.
And there are ideas about what's the other side of anarchism, like libertarians. Like there
Libertarianism,
are
yeah.
libertarians
Yeah.
idea that I like, and I don't hate poor people, so I
Yeah.
can be a libertarian. Yeah, I'm in the middle.
Yeah,
I don't. I
I
don't.
think it's cool to think oneself politically as, like there is this particle wave duality of matter, that all of a sudden
Yeah.
you have to materialize yourself in a point to vote. I mean, if you want to vote, or if you don't want to vote, that's fine. But I mean, the people who want to vote it would be great if we could just, as you were describing, keep our ideas in the cloud of possibilities. And I think that's what being a centrist means. And being a centrist is super important. And then it comes down when you are analyzing the situation and you have a certain set of political options, or if you want to think about it politically, because I know this goes beyond politics. And then you wear a waveform, and then you materialize yourself as a particle, and you're like, okay, today the smartest thing is to vote for Trump or whatever, or to vote for Bernie Sanders, or to vote for Christina Kirchner, or whatever you want. I mean, so I think that the role of the centrist, and people always want to kind of pull you towards one of the sides, and I think it's a way much more sophisticated position to be able to make a decision based on the context of what's going on, and that has an important role, and
Yeah.
wrapping this up home, I tell you, I recently was on dusting my old tweets, and I found my first tweet, and I'm extremely proud of my first tweet. My first tweet was
Whoa!
my
Hit
first
me.
my first tweet was, I wish you an analog life.
Oh my God, that's the best tweet ever, man.
So
Whoa.
if I could recommend everybody to do something, is to try to kind of find a way to enjoy your analog life, because it's very different than your digital life, and it's certainly, people trivialize things so much, but sometimes I tell something to my wife in her ear that nobody in the universe can ever hear, or will never be able to hear, only her, and that matters so much, the fact that you can do it. And that's why it's important to, put down the phone and just go away and just talk to somebody, something like that, instead of just always being there online and stuff. I mean, I think it's great that we have
Yeah.
this, but we have to find a balance.
Leave your phone at home sometimes. It's spying on you.
Yeah.
It always spies, and it will never stop.
Absolutely, always.
Leave it at home sometimes. Take a day for yourself. Yeah, it's important. Yeah.
Awesome. So, well, guys, I'm going to drop it here. It's time to move on. We're going to have Amilcar back on the Leo Perez show as soon as possible. Please, everybody who speaks Spanish, and if you don't speak Spanish, just buy it anyways and then translate it or something like that. I don't know. There's something like that, but
I'm going to get it translated. It's coming. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I would, if there's anything I can do to help you to get an audiobook done or something, just let's talk, because
Yeah, let's do it. Well, that's another story, but I started with the audiobook and recorded like 3 chapters, and then I had a falling out with the guy who was recording me, and that ended the process. But it's coming. Yeah.
Because that's super important. And also, I mean, I really like when the author reads the book. It just makes such a big difference. By the way, it's such a privilege of modernity. How much I would like to hear, Shakespeare reading a book or something, and then you can all of a sudden hear most of your modern audiobooks are read by the author, and it would be amazing to hear you narrating your own book, bro.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to.
Yeah.
All of this is coming.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will. And well, thank you everybody who joined us till now. I hope you had a great time. Amilcar, this was amazing. I had an amazing time, and this is just the first one of many. Man. Yeah, this is just the first one of
many. Like we didn't even start. We haven't even started.
That's the best.
There's so much we could talk about, and I was prepared for the moonlighting conversation more than anything. Like I was like trying to remember some facts and that, and we didn't even mention it.
Yeah. Well, that's how we're going to start the next one, man. That's how we're going to start the next one. That's amazing. I mean, that's how profound life is. And I mean, that's why I'm just enthusiast of life. I mean, it just never gets boring. It's just amazing, and I'm so happy that we can sit down here. And when you face a podcast like this, you're always like, wow, let's talk for 2 hours. Like, how are we gonna cover those 2 hours? Like, it really feels and then it's just like flies, like flies.
I wanted to have like a pre-production meeting that we had.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessary at all.
No.
Like we could,
But it gave us an orientation. I always, I think that it's good.
But we're talking about the moon landing, and we didn't even do it. So it's amazing to me how easy the conversation was. That was my point.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
It was amazing to have you here, and I cannot wait for the next one. I'm very happy for this. Amilcar Ortega, please, everybody. His Twitter handle is going to be down there. By the way, Baila Tormenta, don't forget about that. And one funny thing is that Venezuelans were so early into Twitter that Amilcar managed to catch the handle at Hefner. So just follow it. It's so funny. I mean, all our friends have this like at Leo or something like that because we were so early there. So if you want to follow him on Twitter, find him at Hefner. He also have an English based account, which is Eduardo Prospero. Am I correct? Yeah.
Ed Prospero.
23. Anyways, everything is down in the description below.
Yeah.
Have a great time. Amilcar, thank you very much. I'll see you very soon. Take care, man. Baila Tormenta, everybody.
For having me.
Yeah.
It's done. We did it.
It's done. Great, man.